I mean, there's been a lot happening just in terms of just
yeah.
the social sphere at the moment with regards to, I guess, big brands and just their kind of misjudgments, as they will call it, with regards to racial context and things like that. And it just got us talking.
Yeah.
And I think the conversation was around the fact that as minority groups, are we hypocritical when it comes to the idea of racism? That's what you kind of was thinking about. Yeah. So, what's your thoughts on that? You were kind of gunning for that one.
Yeah, I was actually. I believe we can't be hypocritical when it comes to racism. I think because sometimes we focus on the man, so to speak, so much, we kind of lose.
The man, what do you mean? Explain that.
When it comes to the man, well, some might deem it the establishment, some might deem it as the Caucasian, some might deem it as the power that be. But I think sometimes in our focus of the man, we kind of lose focus of ourselves and the way we treat one another.
Okay.
And we kind of deem it as, because it's all in-house, it's okay, you know? And by that I mean everyone from every walks of life. And the reason why I say that is that sort of the relationship between, say, even a Ghanaian and a Nigerian, the relationship between a Nigerian and someone from Somalia, and it goes on and it goes on so on and so forth. Even sometimes the relationship between a black American and an African,
right,
they can sometimes use very insulting words when it comes to Africa, and not understand that that's where they're from, and sort of almost see it as, I'm here, you there. I've seen comedians make jokes and even go to a certain part of Africa, as in would have gone to Nigeria, and would still use the term, I went to Africa, and as if Africa was a country and not a continent. Do you know what I mean?
Right. That's not racism.
That isn't.
We're talking about levels of ignorance.
Yeah, but it all stems from, where does racism come from? It all stems from ignorance as well. For at the core of it all is the idea of not understanding and accepting one another. Do you know what I mean? That ignorance of thinking you are better than the next person because of maybe the way they speak, because of maybe the accent, because of the way they look. So when I thought about it, it just got me thinking, why is it that we deem it okay if, say, a white man came and said something very derogatory towards a black person, and that
derogatory, wait, racist. Like,
racist.
You gotta be explicit, bro, because people can say you're an asshole. That's derogatory to me, but that's not.
But you are
racially right. Okay, but that's not racially binding. You know what I mean? So you gotta be explicit about what exactly you're talking about.
I do get what you're saying. But if a white person comes and is very racist towards an ethnic minority, that is seen as a very clear-cut hate crime, right? It's a black and white, a black and brown, whatever it is, it's very clear-cut. But we almost tend to turn a blind eye when, say, a Jamaican is being very racist towards an African person, or vice versa.
So actually, I think to really get full context, I want to know what your definition of racism is, because to me, those two things are not the same.
Yeah, for me.
So what's the definition of racism?
Yeah, so for me, the definition of racism is we seem
Bro, no.
It's
paragraph.
Yeah, no.
Asking for a definition.
It's not a paragraph. We seem to think the definition of racism should be I'll get there.
The definition of something by trying to.
For me,
denounce what another definition is. How is that?
Because I know where you're coming from, and I want to denounce that before you jump on that.
Just tell me what your definition of racism is.
My definition of racism is not accepting someone because of the shade of their color, because of where they come from. It doesn't have to be a black and white thing. It doesn't have to be a black and brown thing. It could be a black on black thing, and it will still
that's
be
not racism, though, because you're both of the same race, so that cannot be but because it's discrimination. Based on someone's race. That's ultimately.
So
so how can you from the same race.
How about
discriminatory?
How about tribalism then?
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Tribalism.
Yeah, but tribalism is also a form of racism.
It's a form of discrimination.
Yeah, but
racism has a power investment in it, right? So
you do realize you've got people killing one another in the same country.
Yes.
Because of tribalism. So
I mean, I don't know why. Do you think I don't know that?
No, I know you know that.
Exactly, that's exactly what it is.
Yes.
It's tribalism. It's not racism.
Yeah, so
that's tribalism.
Yeah, but it's all discriminatory, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
My point is, so is sexism, but sexism is not racism.
Yeah, sexism is not
discrimination based on gender.
Yeah, but when it comes to all of these, what do you call it? Tribalism, racism. It's
sexism.
Sexism.
Yes.
Now, but when it comes to tribalism and racism, I'm not talking about sexism for the time being. I'm talking about tribalism and racism. When it comes to that, it all comes from skin color and the way we talk and the way we look. So I'm not talking about gender for the time being. I'm talking about the way we look and the way what we deem acceptable and what isn't.
Just like colorism, in that same bracket of someone who's lighter and darker. That's not racism. So they are just different tiers of discrimination.
Yeah.
So what you're talking about, a Ghanaian and a Caribbean
or a Nigerian,
that's not racism.
Yeah, but why do we deem it okay? Even let's say in the true letter of the law. That isn't racism.
Right.
But why do we feel it's okay to be very derogatory towards one another?
Exactly.
In that world, and we turn a blind eye to it, but then we focus on, what do you call it? What is so obvious, as in the white person being derogatory towards us. And we feel, okay, we will scream and shout over that, which is rightfully so. We should be doing that. Right. But then we are not fixing what is in our own backyard. Because if I do not respect my brother, I'm actually sending a signal that, you know what, it's okay for you not to respect him also.
Of course.
And for me, that is what worries me. Is the fact that we deem it okay to look down on one another and then go, oh yeah, but when we step out, I want you to respect.
Well, is there a specific incident lately that made you think that? Because why you enraged by that right now? Is there something that happened recently?
It's something that's been happening, I think, for a very long time, and it comes out to even the way we use the N-word. Right? I think we've had a conversation in the past where, and I was on a different stance back then. I'm thinking, you know what? Yeah, if we use it in-house, we use it in-house. But then it got me thinking, is that also not saying a signal? Because if I'm okay to use, because a word is a word, right? And if the word is there, you cannot say, you know, I've got a word, but I do not want anyone else to use it by myself. So is it something that we should even be abolishing in the first place? I think you had an interesting stance on that. The first time we had that conversation, I actually was on the other. I said, you know, if you want to use it. But actually, this actually got me thinking, as in, you know what, we need to even be scratching that word. Because everything is about signals and the way we portray ourselves to other people as well.
Absolutely. I mean, you touched on
I know.
Right now. I'm trying to really collect where I'm going to come in from. I mean, I think the N-word conversation is a really huge one. And I think, personally, the answer is, in my personal opinion, the N-word is not a conversation.
Now, let's go back to, take it step by step, right?
Okay.
So, let's start with do you think we're hypocrites when it comes to racism and, so take it from there.
Because for me, I don't know what the question there was, really, to be honest, because I do think that race inspired discrimination, which equals racism, especially with a sprinkle of power dynamic, which you don't have when it's two black people, no matter where they're from. There's no power dynamic in terms of institutional. So actually, when a white person is racist towards a Chinese or a black person, that to me completely is totally different from a person of the same color being discriminatory to each other. So to me, there's two separate boxes.
So, but you are contextualizing that from the angle of Europeans. What if you were in China and the Chinese was being racist to the white man? Would you say that isn't racist because in Europe the white man has the power?
Not in Europe, bro. You have to. I think we're touching something super huge. Actually, I don't think you like the context of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
White man is not in power just in Europe.
No.
In Africa, the white man is still the power.
No, yeah, I did not talk about Africa. I'll talk about.
But it's still the same thing.
I mentioned China
because they still worship whiteness in China.
Yes,
so the power structure is completely the same.
So what I'm saying is, if a Cantonese man is being racist to a white man, is that okay? Because
what you're talking about, no one is. I'm not here trying to say that's okay. I'm just saying that's a different thing.
Yeah, no.
So I'm not saying it's okay.
No, what I'm saying
is
just
saying
power structure is
it's
relative,
not racism.
Right? Power structure is relative.
It's not relative.
Yeah,
power structure. It's not relative.
You got depending on where you move from. Someone might be powerful here and might not be powerful somewhere else.
No, bro. The power structure, when racism is concerned, it's not relative because the white man has the dominant power everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's not relative.
But in certain aspects.
What aspects do they not have the power?
So we're not talking about right now. We're not talking about what you call it, image. Right now, we're talking about the clear idea of racism. We're not talking about image.
What do you mean image? I don't know what you're talking about.
I do understand that we live in a world where we're sort of being whitewashed. I do understand that.
It's not about whitewash. It's about the dominant power in the society that we exist within is structurally.
Hence the term whitewash.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is, you will go to certain pockets of the world where the power structure isn't exactly clear cut as that.
I disagree. There's nowhere on earth, in my opinion, there's nowhere in the world that the same dominant structure of white supremacy and the imperialist and colonialist ideals don't exist. Because white man is still the symbol of adulation and success all across the globe. So if you go to China, they bleach their skin because they want to be closer to the white man.
I get
all that.
Structurally,
it cannot be racism because the white man still has the dominant power, even though.
I think that's where I slightly disagree.
Which is
because
great to have a conversation around that.
But no, sorry, go on.
So for me, I think that you cannot remove that structure because actually the power still favors the white person, even though in numbers they are the minority, but they still have the dominance. Just like a white person in Nigeria. There might be only 10 of them in one particular place, but they hold the dominant power versus all the 50, 100, however many Nigerians that are around them. So the idea of them being racially discriminated against does not hold weight because institutionally the power is still in their favor. So what I'm saying is, to have a conversation, we need to separate the terms. What is happening to them is not racism. Yeah, so when you're saying a black person or another black person, that's not racism.
But that's tribalism. That's also... That is
tribalism, yes, and that is also anti-blackness. That's also colorism. There's a lot of that within the same conversation, but it's not racism.
So but my whole argument and the whole point I'm trying to make is, regardless of what you call it, is in the same realm. Regardless of how you call it, there's a reason why tribalism is also prominent. It's also a power structure. So there's a reason why one tribe would deem another tribe unworthy.
Yes,
so,
of course.
Yeah. So regardless of what you can call it, you can put it in any kind of box that makes you feel comfortable. Racism, tribalism, it's still from the same realm of someone deeming another person unworthy or beneath them. So even if it's the same skin color, it's still the same idea.
But you're talking. There's like I'm just trying to get a very clear idea of what you're really trying to get a conversation going about, because ultimately there's so many layers to so many different things. Bigotry is also a form of somebody thinking that you're not worthy or you're not good enough to be here, so I'm going to make you feel less than. So bigotry is not racism, but that is a term. So is tribalism. It's another way of trying to extricate or other a group of people. It's not racism. So that's why they have different terms and different definitions. So racism is a completely different thing. And the reason why I am so adamant in being able to separate both is because it's important to be able to highlight that there is a power structure that is not replicated in the other things that you're talking about. Right? So when it comes to...
But there are power structures.
There isn't.
There's always a power structure.
Of course there is, but it's not in the same... I'm talking about institutionally power structure.
Yeah, but depending on where you're from, that is also an institutional
So what
thing.
you're talking about is the fact that And I think that's a byproduct of racism, and it's a byproduct of colonialism and all these other factors. But I don't think it is racism. So when you're trying to say, are we hypocrites when it comes to discrimination or racism, I don't know if I'll use the word hypocrites. I just think that there's so many layers to it. I think I can only speak from a perspective of a black person because that's what I am.
Really?
The fact is, there is a history, which majority of the other ethnicities and races don't have that history, right? So you cannot remove that context.
Yeah.
So that's why it's never the same, right? Because there's a long history of slavery. There's a long history of transatlantic slave trade. There's a long history of colonial imperialism in Africa that you cannot remove that context when you think about a white person and a black person versus a black person and a black person, because that history is the same.
Yeah.
So actually, that's not the basis of me trying to belittle you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So therefore, there has to be a separation of both. So therefore, I don't necessarily think what is happening is hypocrisy, but I do think what is happening is a sad byproduct of what has been kind of I guess been used to subjugate us, and that is the idea of what's happened through slavery, what's happened through colonialism, imperialism, all of these things. So therefore, we are now taking on the representation of our oppressor to ourselves, which is ultimately what happened in the whole slave times when the guy, the house Negro thought he was better than the guys. He was not racist to them. He just thought, now I am closer to the master, so actually I'm going to mimic the behavior of the master, but he cannot be racist to them. He's just bigoted. He's also whatever terms you want to use, but he wasn't racist because he cannot be racist to them.
But I think my whole point though is, right, are we not hypocrites when it comes to that? It might not be racism the way I would treat you, but don't you think there's a certain kind of hypocrisy to think me belittling you is, I don't want to say okay, but me belittling you because of wherever you're from, regardless of me having a power structure, a power dynamic over you or not, me finding a way to belittle you or be extremely belligerent or extremely just because of who you are, and me thinking that's okay, but someone else coming in, regardless of what their skin is, and being racist towards me, that is worse.
I do think it's worse.
Yeah. Do you think it's worse?
Of course, I think it's worse.
Do you not think?
But the point
your
is,
own kind with the ultimate respect is even more important in the day we live in than the way someone else treats us.
I think we're talking about two different ththings. Yes, treating ourselves with respect and having this great level of solidarity and continual kind of unionship, I think is amazing, and that's where I hope we all are going to be. But that is a secondary conversation that we should be having within our own community and within ourselves.
But that's should that not be primary?
The arguments is there for that to be the case, but what I'm saying, why I think it's absolutely different and it's absolutely worse, because that is systemic. So when that's happening from the outside to our own people, that has a very, very direct impact on our socioeconomic power. That has a direct impact on our ability to educate ourselves, educate our children, to get opportunities, all of these factors. That's why it's completely not the same. Whereas if I'm treating you like you're not as good as me or whatever, that doesn't have a direct impact on actually what happens to your legacy, what happens to your children's future, what happens to the opportunities that are going to provide more opportunities for your future. So not directly. Yeah. So that's why to me it's not the same. That's why the other is completely worse. Because it's completely entrenched in a systemic agenda to consistently subjugate a group of people, whereas the other one is not based upon a systemic agenda.
But don't you think sometimes the way you treat one another is also a projection of the way others then treat you?
Of course. And that's a conversation that I think is absolutely important to have about why is it that actually we give people the permission to actually treat us the way that they do. Because actually what happens is ultimately a reflection of, just like if as you can perhaps visualize, if I come into my house with muddy shoes and I, eat food and I throw the bones on the floor and then I invite somebody into my house, they look at the state of my house. When they eat and I serve them food, they would throw the stuff on the floor because I've given them the permission to do that. And that's exactly what you're talking about. So I do agree, because ultimately the way in which we treat each other is absolutely giving people the permission to be able to mistreat us the same way. And I think that's a conversation we should have ourselves, but that's not racism. That's just something that's about black empowerment, and something that's about sense of pride and instilling pride in ourselves. Therefore, inspiring others to put pride in our name and pride in the ways in which they treat us. So I think they're separate things, but they equally need to be happening. But if we're talking about which is worse, but the other is completely worse to me.
But don't you feel that still makes us a bit hypocritical, regardless of it being racist or not? I say, me deeming it's okay. And I keep coming back
talking about saying it's okay.
No. I'm just saying. I'm just being hypothetical right now. Me deeming it's okay to belittle my fellow skin, right? But then go, oh yeah, but I expect someone else not to be racist towards me. That person, So I'm not saying it's the exact same thing as in what I'm doing towards the other person is racist. But is there not a level of hypocrisy there? Me thinking it's okay to belittle someone, but the powers that belittles me, that is a problem.
I absolutely agree. I think that's a problem. But I think what we need to kind of actually look into is when we think about the strata of minority discrimination, black people are always at the bottom in every way. So therefore, Indian people, Chinese people, Jewish people, they're layers above us, right? And that's where it's the most saddening, because actually what happens when it comes to discrimination is the fact that we take on, as I highlighted before, we take on the embodiment of our own oppressors. So therefore, there's a tier of Chinese people that are obviously always, in so many instances, racist to black people, right? Because they see themselves in the light of closer to white people. So you are the bottom. Same way, I just came from India. I had examples and experiences of them being racist towards me, because to them they see themselves closer to the white person. So therefore, we cannot look at what a black person does to me as the same as that, because they are all levels.
But that's what I'm saying. So
therefore, that hypocrisy speaks clearly when you talk about what a Chinese person would do to a black person, or what an Indian person would do to a white person. That is my point. Because there's a lot of instances, because there's scenarios recently of this famous Indian Bollywood actress, after like a football game, she posted something about Iwobi, and she said, "Oh, this monkey, blah blah blah." She posted it on her Instagram, and then when she got all this backlash, she was like, "Oh, I also get racially abused as well, so I know what it feels like." And I was thinking, and that's exactly what you're saying.
That is exactly what I'm saying.
But that to me is so clear about the consistent anti-blackness which is amongst all other minority groups.
That is my point.
But it's not within this. That's what I'm saying. There has to be a distinction.
Yeah, but the point I was trying to make was not necessarily black on black, but
which is what you said.
Yeah, that was the example. I used. But as minorities as a whole, the things we do and say and the way we treat each other, is it not hypocritical? Do you know what I mean? Because someone from India being, whatever you want to term it, very, very disrespectful to someone from Africa.
No, that's racist, because that's two different races.
But we would deem ourselves as, if we live here, obviously back there, they're not minorities. If we live here, we would deem ourselves as minorities, right? So if that happens here, but then if he goes out and a white person is extremely racist to him, and he takes offense to that, but actually what he did to you, he thinks that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is the hypocrisy I'm talking about.
Right.
That was what actually got me really thinking.
I think we don't hold the same vehemence in our kind of conviction when it comes to challenging and tackling inter-minority racism.
Yeah.
And I think that's ultimately what it is that you're actually trying to coin, this idea of inter-minority racism. Because I think that is the one that we don't tackle as much. We are so much more, I guess, just boiled by the idea that a white person is racist.
Because it's sort of like clear cut.
Exactly. But when it's happening within an Indian and a black person, or a Chinese and a South American person or whatever, then they are much more gray areas that people just don't actually have the same level of kind of just anger and kind of just reaction to. And I think that's something that needs to happen, because there's been a lot of incidents lately, you know, with regards to, you know, there's this Colombian rapper, what's his name? Remind me, you talked about it earlier.
Is it Lil Pump?
Lil Pump, yes. I mean, for all my life, I thought he was, I thought he had to have some black in him, because the way he uses the N-word in his, I'm like, you gotta have black, bro.
I'm gonna give him a pass, right?
But he's Colombian, so, and he's white Colombian.
I didn't even know that. I didn't even know.
So I think he posted something on his IG stories or something like that. He was doing a rap and he said something about Chinese people, and he held his eye and slanted his eye while he was doing that. And this Chinese rapper from New York, never heard of him before.
Something, I think I don't know of the dude,
So he took offense to that, as he should, and definitely called him out and said, you know, listen, you need to take that down, and you can't be disrespectful to my own people, and blah, blah, blah. And what is really interesting to me is the actual collective support that happened with the whole Chinese community. Because what happened within that is, after a little while, there was word that he said he's banned from going to China. I mean, that's a huge country.
That's a huge
For there to be a solidarity that he got banned from coming to China, that made me so hurt, because that would never happen in any kind of black nation, where someone openly makes remarks or says things that is completely racist to us, but we don't use financial weaponry to
cuff him.
Absolutely. Because then in the same vein, this same Chinese rapper in his lyrics uses the N-word.
He drops those bombs.
So, and that's the hypocrisy that you speak of. Because he was so vehemently disapproving of this slur that...
One line.
Yes. Whereas he uses the N-word consistently in his lyrics. But we as black people have not financially put pressure on him. We have not verbally put pressure on him in the way that he had to realize. Because we consume a lot of things. We have the power. This is our culture. He's rapping. But yet, he has the platform and the success to be able to make a living off using the N-word consistently. You know, and that to me was what was really disheartening. The fact that as a people, we have all the mouth and the Twitter handles to really go at things, but we actually don't have the solidarity to be able to use financial power to disembody and disempower a group of people that are actively racially discriminating against us. And I think that's the problem, because when it comes down to some of the things that we're talking about recently, about like big fashion brands like Gucci coming up with this, what is it, a black balaclava / jumper thing, Prada as well. They came up with some keychains.
I saw that, right, and I was like, and no disrespect to Stevie Wonder, right, I was like, even Stevie Wonder would have told you that's a bad idea, and he can't see.
Right.
I mean, who rolled up that line and thought, you know what, this is a good idea, because they don't care.
Absolutely, and actually, it's not like they don't care. They do care, but they know that the demographic that they are actually doing it at expense of are still going to purchase it. So it's not like they don't care. They wouldn't do it to Jewish people. Do you think they will come up with something, a fashion brand that has something about Holocaust, and their whole brand will not get destroyed? And in terms of numbers, Jewish people are nowhere near the size of black people in the whole world. So for them to be able to, like, you so rarely ever hear, and if people do say or do things about Jewish community, oh my God, their whole career is dead, finished, gone.
And you know the funny thing, I think a day, and I suppose what you literally said, right? So a day after, Mayweather, right, goes to the Gucci store, buying, so what do you call it? They ask him, have you heard about what the Gucci brand is done there? You know what he said?
What did he say?
I don't really care. I'm not. This is his words. I'm not a follower. I just do what I want to do. I just buy what I want to buy. And this is the solidarity that you were talking about.
Right.
I mean, for such a thing to go on, and you don't even have this presence of mind to go, you know, let me pause for a second here, and let me think things through, regardless of you being a follower or not, and go, you know what? This is actually very disgusting.
Exactly.
As
and
a
this
human
is one
being,
of the most wealthiest black people in our current generation.
Sharing the limelight. And he goes, I don't care.
And that's the reason why Gucci would never stop doing things like that. That's why Prada won't stop doing things like that. Because they know that we still have this complex.
We don't want to inconvenience ourselves.
Exactly. We still have this complex that they are the epitome of success.
Yeah. Of
so
wealth.
exactly.
Yeah.
So they know that people like that will come into Gucci and spend, I don't know, 50 grand straight away.
Yeah.
So they're not worried about the people who are struggling to buy one pair of loafers who are going to boycott them. They know that they have people like that who are going to
come in and buy the place out.
Really. So it's really interesting. Obviously, there also is someone like 50 Cent who had images of him burning his Gucci outfit.
Yeah, and you had T.I., you've got, for better or for worse, Soulja Boy. You've actually had a lot of prominent black people coming out and going, you know what? We're not going to represent your brand anymore. This is the first time that it shifted a little bit to the point where they've realized, oh, we may have really effed up here.
Right.
This time round, just 2-line apology of, oh, we didn't know what we were doing. It's not gonna cut it. So apparently they've scheduled a meeting. The head of Gucci scheduled a meeting with Dapper Dan. Yeah. To I don't know what they're gonna talk about, but yeah, this is. Oh, and Spike Lee actually came out and was like, nope, this is not happening.
And that's great, but the thing is, it's not a general consensus. And this is something that I think this is the first time where there is that, as you said, much more of a visible kind of collective voice. But there still is fragmentation.
Oh, I'm very sure.
Ultimately, you know, there's still people that are going to Gucci and spending 10, 20, 30 racks. You know, and that's the disheartening bit. Because that's why, as you highlighted, that's why we give people the permission to be able to do that to us. Because they know that we would still put our money over ourselves.
And we don't even seem to correct one. There was a very interesting footage as well where Chris Rock.
Yeah, oh my God, with Seinfeld and Ricky Gervais.
Yeah, Ricky Gervais and Louis C.K.
That was
And Louis C.K. uses the N-word. And Chris Rock does not have the presence of mind to even go, dude, what are you doing?
He never the presence of mind. He was like, me and him use the N-word all the time. And they were both laughing at it. And then you know what was crazy about it?
It took, what's his name?
Seinfeld.
To be the one
was
like, dude, this is not okay.
This is not ever a word that I would use, and I don't think it should be used.
Yeah.
And then even in that conversation, what was really interesting is Ricky Gervais was like, oh, blah, 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 you use the N-word. And then he used the N-word. He said he doesn't use the N-word, but then he's used the N-word. I was thinking, that is how interesting it is in terms of the contagious nature of that word. And actually, what's really, really scary is the fact that a lot of black people, we feel like we can hand out passes to people to use the N-word. And that's ultimately what happened in that clip. Because Chris Rock handed a pass to
Louis C.K. Oh yeah, what do you call it? I've known him for so long, and he means, it doesn't matter whether he means well or not.
Exactly. Absolutely under no circumstances should anyone feel like they have the right to hand out the pass.
I mean, who are you to give a pass?
Exactly. You don't speak for all black people. Yeah. And then the second layer of that conversation is the interrogation within ourselves about why do we need to use the word.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Because then that is a separate conversation in itself.
Yeah.
Because that word is obviously going to be forever polarizing. Right? So therefore, no one has the right to say use the word or don't use the word.
Yeah.
But the question is, what benefit comes from the usage of the word if we are still so impassioned when somebody else that's not our race uses it against us?
You cannot have a word and go, okay, I've got this word, I'm going to throw it about like hotcakes, but I'm going to be the only one throwing it about.
Right.
No one else there throwing it about.
And I think the scary thing about that is obviously, like, black music is the popular music of our current culture.
Yeah.
And riddled through all black musicians, majority of, I'll say at least 90%, use the N-word
Yeah.
consistently in their lyrics.
Yeah.
And I think that then somewhat puts people in a very tricky situation. Because obviously the situation with Kendrick Lamar, bringing out a white fan on stage to recite his lyrics, which was completely riddled with the N-word, and expecting her to self-censor is also quite
hypocritical.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's where the problem is, because actually we use it so freely in all the media that we create, and we then hold this same level of vitriol when people are reciting those lyrics and using those words that we've ultimately given them permission to do. So it's a very tricky one. So for me, firstly, the conversation should never be entertained with any white person trying to ask for permission to use the word. The word should never be even in contention to ever be used.
I mean, Eminem's got it right. He never uses it.
Right. He used it on one occasion.
Oh yeah, he did.
Well, for us to know, I'm sure he's used it numerous other times.
When
and then he came out and apologized for it. But yeah, so that conversation should never be one that should be entertained with any white person trying to ask for any sort of
pass or
absolutely
with you.
You should never even want to. That's the question. That's the.
Why do you want to?
Exactly.
I mean, there's so many words in the English that I'm sure you don't even know 10% of.
Exactly.
Why do you want to use this word?
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's everything, and that again speaks to the power of our culture. Because we make everything
look cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So therefore, people want in. They sound so cool when they use this word. Now I want to be able to be part of that. I like that culture. And that's ultimately what happens because we also aspire to be where they are. We say, you know what? Take
come
it.
Come in. Because if you come in, you rub off on me as well.
Exactly.
And now look at saying kind of way.
Exactly. And that's a problem. And that's the bigger conversation. Obviously, we could go so far with this conversation, but I think that's ultimately where we are going to perhaps draw the line on that one, and the fact that there is hypocrisy and there's a lot of self-checking that needs to happen within ourselves in terms of the way we treat ourselves. So therefore, that doesn't give other people permission to do other things to us.
It's that consistency.
Exactly.
It's that consistency. Because I mean, that video, I bet he watches it now and go, "I wish I could turn back the clock."
I don't know if he will.
I think he will.
Because Chris Rock is not a stupid person, That he did. I don't think that was I don't think that was like he just what's the word?
Because
I don't think that was
there was an
oversight. I think that was a conscious thing. Because they asked him, why don't you use the N-word? He said it's played out.
Yeah.
That was his response. So he has this apathy towards the word.
Yeah.
So he said, I don't think he would go back and say, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Because I think that's the problem.
Because there was a scene, when Seinfeld actually was like, nah. He had a look on his face.
Right.
He had a look on his face.
He did.
You could tell that something just put it and went, actually, this is what I should be saying.
Right.
But it had already gone too far. But
he
had a look on his face when Seinfeld was like, nah, that's not even a word I even think.
Right.
And you should not be using it.
Absolutely.
And you could tell at that point, I hope so. I hope anyway. That
I hope
there
so
was a
too.
teaching moment from the wrong person.
Right.
They should be the one giving out that teaching moment.
Right.